So when you have people who teach a man that a woman is not valuable to us, that's destroying our community. When you have people who teach a woman, I don't need a man, I can do this by myself. Like, I know I can't be a woman. I know the power of my queen. I know when I have her around me, how they protect and empower me. But when you start teaching a woman or a man that we don't need each other, that's the beginning of destruction of a nation. And we're the only people who are being taught to think like that.
It's evident that he cares. What do you care about? Welcome to the Newman Show. It's the Newman Show.
Greetings. We have with us today Ronald Moten. Ronald Moten has emerged as an icon in Washington, D.C. I first met Ronald Moten back in, I think it was about 88, somewhere thereabouts. He was working with sort of his spiritual father, if you will, Al-Malik Farrakhan. And there was an organization called Ceasefire, Don't Smoke the Brothers. It later morphed into Ceasefire, Don't Smoke the Brothers and Sisters. And I had been asked to contribute to this organization, but really didn't know about it or necessarily what they were doing. So they told me, you know, what they were doing and how they operated and how they were trying to put out turf wars and cut down on gang activity and that sort of thing. And I wanted to see firsthand. I wanted to verify what they were telling me. I didn't really know them. I wanted to make sure I wasn't getting conned before I, contributed to the cause. So, yeah, before I made any kind of an investment, I wanted to see for myself what they did. And I can tell you, the night that I tried to verify for myself, it scared the hell out of me. Because we went into a place in Southeast Washington where folks had issues with other folks in their same community. And more than one occasion as we were going around trying to locate those who had the beasts, we heard gunshots. There was ambulances coming. There were police coming. There were rescue squads coming. And I thought to myself, these brothers are out here putting their lives on the line to save the lives of those in our community. And from that time, which was 88, 98, 2008, we're approaching 40 years. I could not have been more impressed then and more impressed now with the work that Ron was doing then and what he has been doing since. So I wanted to invite him here. But prior to getting to him, I'm going to ask you to indulge me that I am going to read something that will take me a few minutes. But please indulge me and hopefully you'll understand why I'm doing this. It was an opinion written on October the 14th, 2022, published in the Washington Post, written by Brother Colby King. And it reads, our rector, our priest at St. Mary's Episcopal Church in Foggy Bottom, the Reverend Wesley Williams, leads us weekly in a prayer specially composed for a country that swells with an ocean of weapons. Citing violence in our street, he prays, strengthen the lungs of the living to cry out for change, and may our own deep roar shake us from our complacency until we may see and we may say that no more, no more, no more shall perish. We respond in unison, amen. Those weekly recitations might sound rote and mechanical to some ears. The prayers, however, aren't just for show. They are heartfelt in the belief that God hears prayers. It's clear that, unfortunately, many others don't. That lesson was driven home in the hours and days after last Sunday's morning service. Sometime before 1 p.m. Sunday, a teenage boy was shot on Bernie Place in southeast Washington, D.C., and taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. An hour and a half later, another boy was found shot, but conscious and breathing on Massachusetts Avenue Southeast. He, too, was taken to the hospital. Shortly after 4 p.m., 2 teens were shot on Stanton Road Southeast. One was found conscious and breathing. The second made it to the hospital on his own. That was Sunday. Just after 11 a.m. on Monday, 2 teens were shot on Water Street Northwest. 20 minutes later, a boy was shot in the leg and a man was shot in the stomach on Columbia Road Northwest. On Thursday, 15-year-old Andre Robinson was sitting on his great-grandmother's porch on 48th Place Northeast when a car pulled up around 3:30 p.m. 3 people got out and opened fire, striking Robinson multiple times. He was pronounced dead at the hospital. This Sunday and on all the Sundays and in morning and evening prayer services in the days ahead, people in this city will be heard praying for an end to the shooting, bloodshed, and heartbreaks caused by the violence choking the life out of this city. I'm going to paraphrase and say, choking the life out of this city, Washington, D.C., and choking the life out of Baltimore, and choking the life out of Philadelphia, and choking the life out of Trenton. You go on up to New York City and Hartford, Connecticut. You go on up, man, to Boston, Massachusetts, and Chicago, and across this country. Deadly violence is choking the life out of all of these urban areas and elsewhere. There's no escaping that grim, ghastly reality. As with some of you and my fellow congregants, my focus has not been limited to putting words on a page. Living here and seeing the residue of violence up close, yellow crime scene tape, kids in handcuffs, mothers with haunted eyes, politicians and public service searching for answers, for anything that will make the problem go away or at least to change the subject. My own setbacks, mentored kids kept alive, out of jail, but not on solid ground. Those things keep me at this, as do the lingering thoughts of gunned-down children lying in the streets. D.C. crime prevention and diversion programs, city-funded interventions to get at the root causes are not to be criticized or scoffed at, but they can only supplement and in no way supplant what is missing: the sustaining glue of close, enriching, and supporting family that begins at birth and grows along with our children. This isn't finger-pointing or shaming or any of that other that inhibits self-examination. It's about the shared commitment evoked at the beginning of this column. Recognition that faith without good works is nothing. That we must be shaken from our complacency and cry out for change. A commitment that means stepping beyond prayer and stepping up to offer time and treasure, whether in personal aid or charitable contributions or directing our taxes to support children trying to make their way. That one way, hard though it might be, and with community roadblocks along the way, is to build families, rear children, reinforce values, and protect them with loving arms. These are steps that might help us get to a place where, as a community, it may finally be said, no more, no more, no more shall perish. Amen. Ron Moten, welcome to the Rock Newman Show 2.0.
Thanks for having me, sir.
Thanks for showing up today, Ron. So this was written by Kobe King. First, I'd like to just get your unvarnished reaction.
Well, you know, I've had many conversations with Kobe King, and the thing that stands out to me, I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we always had political conversations. This is a guy who was a diehard Democrat, but because of policies, he don't care about no political parties anymore for the most part. And the thing that we were talking about is, if you don't have family, you don't have community. And that is the reason why you see all the violence and things that you see in our community. We don't have family anymore. We don't have marriage. We don't have institution. So if you don't have marriage and institution, and I learned this from Bevel, Amelia, and a lot of other people that I studied under Martin Luther King when I used to go to Alabama. And they predicted everything that we're seeing now all over again, even after the crack, epidemic that we had in our city. So how do you correct a child in a community if you don't have a village? You go correct somebody's child in your community, now you get shot, right? So people always say, well, the OGs don't step up no more. This don't step up no more. Why would you step up if you're going to get killed being an OG? You know what I'm saying? So this stuff was done deliberately. You know, even when we talk about D.C., you go back to Marionberry, I wouldn't be the man I was without Marionberry. That's why I don't understand why people won't sign on to a bill to make the street Marionberry Boulevard named after him.
We'll get to that in a moment.
Right. But what I want to say is that, like, all the things that we seeing, it wouldn't happen without those people who were brought up in that village that we had. And when the village was destroyed, it destroyed all the continuity of peace that we've always had, because we held each other accountable in our communities. And all that is gone now. The fathers were taken to prison, right? But even for the fathers were taken to prison, right, because of the crack, legislation that Republicans and Democrats imposed upon our people, it was an attack on the black family before then. And once that attack was successful, we have what we have now. We have communities where you have nobody in the community who's standing for the people, nobody who's holding the people accountable without the police, right? So if you don't have community, you need the police, right? So everybody say F the police, but who's going to do the job if we don't have no community to do it themselves? So we got to look at the institutions that are creating the situation where we don't value family anymore. Well, we don't think that a man needs a woman and a woman needs a man. We got people like, why are black people the only race, right, that has to talk about some of these issues? You never hear another race talking about, well, white women or black women. They talk about the white race. They talk about the Jewish race. They talk about the race, not separating us as a people. This is done deliberately to stop us from having the village that we need to stop the violence.
Okay, Ron, so you say, and you said a couple of times, this is done deliberately.
Yes.
Deliberately by whom?
So when you have people who teach a man that a woman is not valuable to us, that's destroying our community. When you have people who teach a woman, I don't need a man, I can do this by myself. Like, I know I can't be a woman. I know the power of my queen. I know when I have her around me, how they protect and empower me. But when you start teaching a woman or a man that we don't need each other, that's the beginning of destruction of a nation. And we're the only people who are being taught to think like that. That's why we got what we got in our community.
So, man, that's so much to unpack, Ron, because when you say when we are taught like that, we could start anywhere. You are a music aficionado. You are known and have a reputation for supporting in a very big way, and this book talks about it. Don't mute Mo. where you talk about and you have a body of work that has attempted to keep alive music that is indigenous to Washington, D.C., music that is go-go.
Yes.
Now, so when you talk about being taught, again, we can go far, far into history.
Right.
But I want to stay right here current with the proliferation of some of the lyrics that our children, young babies, that their ears are bombarded with. To tell you about an experience that I had when my window was down and another car's window was down.
Right.
And there were some kids in the car, 6, 7, 8 years old, and it looked like, I don't know whether this was mommy and aunt or daddy. There was an older male in the car, but they were singing out loud, not the kids, but the older ones were singing out loud the most degrading, disrespectful, and vulgar of lyrics. What role right now is that playing?
Big role. So let me tell you about what makes places like D.C. so special. We have our own music, which is connected spiritually to our ancestors, which is the djembe, which was the first communication known to mankind, the drum and the voice, right? So throughout history, that's what's kept us alive spiritually. On the slave ships, everything is known that it supports our organs, it supports our spirituality, everything, the drum, right? So in Washington, D.C., you know, we started this music, was started here. It's been our thunder, our lightning against oppression in this city, right? And when they try to stop our music once again, because the attack on music in our city goes back to Marion Barry. Remember the control board?
Sure.
So when the control board came in, it did two things to start the attack on the black middle class and our demise. They took music and trades out of our public schools. So when they took music and trades out of our public schools, it destroyed the black middle class in Washington, D.C., right? And then other people come in who still have their culture, their history, and the trades, and then they go up, and then black people go down.
And so I want to interject, because part of what you're talking about, and I really like to call it like it is. Part of what you're talking about here is gentrification. And part of, this is Washington, D.C., which was once correctly labeled as Chocolate City. Chocolate City no more. But those who have come in and gentrified the streets and the neighborhoods, the communities of Washington, D.C., had an extraordinary effort in order to quiet down this music. They attempted in the sort of the heart of Washington, D.C., at Florida Avenue and 7th Street, there was a store there that sold this go-go music that they complained about, and they targeted. This was not anyone's mistake. This was a design to shut that down. Now, I think what I heard was kind of pablum puking rhetoric that the noise was too loud, when in fact, we think it was something of a much more sinister motive.
Oh, it happens all the time. People come in as our friends. They come in knowing the culture, seeing the things that are there, and once they implant themselves, get entrenched, they try to kill our culture, our spirituality, and things to keep us going. But always, as always, the beat, the drum always fights back. And me and Professor Natalie Hopkins, Tony Lewis Jr., and some others, we put together a petition that got over 87,000 signatures from around the world. And what we found out was, not just in Washington, D.C., but if you go to Lagos, they would not let the native music even be played in clubs in Lagos. So wherever natives are, they're being pushed out. Throughout the world, this is happening. So our music is the driving force that we use to fight back. And it united our city, united young people, old people, even black and white people. Because my thing is, I was told by people with King, I don't look at people based upon color. I look at them based upon their morals and principles and actions, right? And I know that things normally go along the color line. People normally vote along the color line, right? But there are good people everywhere. And what the music did and the cause did was mobilize people who had an ounce of morals and principles in their blood. And they said that we're not going to tolerate people to continue to crush people. But the biggest thing that it did was it gave black people one of their first victories. One of their first victories in a long time. And it was a much needed victory because everybody in D.C. said it was over. They said we couldn't win anything. And that's the worst thing that can happen to people when everybody gives up and they have no hope. When they have no hope, then you see violence. You see all the things that you're seeing now. But that showed people if we organize, we have a strategy, a plan of action, and put all the motives aside and just come together for a cause, we win.
Ron, you just used the word violence. And in looking and reading your book here, one of your chapters starts with violence on the screen, violence in the streets.
Right.
You also are known for a phrase, hurt people, hurt people. Tie those together for me.
So I got that from Reverend Bevel, who worked with Martin Luther King, and that was used around the world. I never heard that term before I was in Alabama studying under civil rights leaders who used that term about hurt people, hurt people. And so you have all these people who are traumatized. So just know that all the stuff our young people are seeing on social media and everything, they're being re-traumatized. Like they see these things and all the violence and all, so they're being traumatized. So back when we had Peaceaholics, we were taking busloads of young people who were training to be real activists. And we would go up there and protest against the violent video games like Grand Theft Auto and things like that, and things that our children were being exposed to because we knew what it was going to lead to today. And we try to tell people it's not just going to be black people shooting things up. It's going to be white children shooting things up because we're training our children to be animals, savages, right? So with the music, the video games, and what they're watching in the movies, because everything you see in the movies 10, 20 years ahead of time, you know what it's bringing. So everything now is coming full circle that's been brewing for the last couple of decades that I've been talking about for the last couple of decades. So now you have all these traumatized people, you have all these single parent households, right? And all this stuff is brewing and it's being incentivized by our enemies. Like we can have plenty of J. Cole's, plenty of Commons, plenty of positive artists, but they're not being incentivized for it. So what happens is when they took away all the positive platforms like Go-Go for over decades to this day, there's nowhere where young people under 18 can go hear go-go music. So what they do is they create their own platforms. Then you bring the hip hop in, you take all the positivity out of there, and you got songs on the radio talking about carjacking, about drugs, about everything violent that you could never thought about 20 years ago. And our children think it's cool to be a fool now versus thinking it's cool to do the right thing. So it's up to us to create the positive platforms and incentivize them. We got this program we're working on called Flip the Trap, where we're going to be having competitions. We already had one group do a song, two youngins from the area, and LeBron James and everybody tapped in. What does that do? It shows them that they can produce something positive and still get clout. Because most of these youngins are not getting no money, they chasing clout. So you mean to tell me that we can't give our young people a platform to do something positive just to get clout, right? So look at all these pretty buildings in D.C. I'm gonna close with this. We brag about $80 million buildings and all these buildings we building in D.C., libraries, etc., right? We had the raggediest buildings in the damn country. But guess what? They were being utilized for everything for our children. We had shows, talent shows, fashion shows, concerts, spelling bees, everything. Every week it was something going on with our children. All that is, we got the pretty buildings, but no activities. So my point is, it's up to us to incentivize our young people for doing the right things. And that doesn't exist to the level that it needs to exist. And we can't blame nobody but ourselves.
Ronald, I want to do something, sort of narrow this now. And I would like to encourage you, when you come the next time, don't be so docile. Bring a little passion with you. So Ron, the narrow issue that I want to address right now is there's an effort underfoot to call a street Marion Boulevard.
Right.
And it has gotten some support. A lot of people look at Marion Barry and say, well, why would you want to honor a philanderer? Why would you want to honor a drug addict? And we say, well, he might have done some of all of that, but so did John F. Kennedy and a whole lot of others that you choose to honor. So those people who are resisting Marion Barry Boulevard, what is their reasoning behind it, and why should there be a Marion Barry Boulevard?
So I start with why should there be a Marion Barry Boulevard? Because I, in my lifetime, have never met, I wouldn't call him a politician, I call him a social scientist, who was able to motivate the people to do what they needed to do, but also empower people. When Marion Barry came in this city, you gotta understand, the majority of the government was white. Yeah. He flipped the whole D.C. government to black people having an opportunity to work. But then he also built a black middle class in D.C. and in Prince George's County, right? Then he was with SNCC, he was with King. He did all this stuff that gave us the opportunities that we needed. But not only that, he was somewhat like a prophet, because everybody in the Bible that God used to lead the people went through something. Most of them went to prison. Most of them had a time in their life where they fell down, but they got back up. They rose back up just like Jesus did, right? So what happens is when we see somebody like Marion Barry fall, I ain't gonna say fall, he was set up. They spent tens of millions of dollars just to get him to smoke a little crack. People don't understand that. They spent money to get a man to smoke crack, and then Hollywood makes him seem like the bad guy. Say that again. They spent tens of millions of dollars to get a man to smoke some crack, to use a woman to get him to smoke crack. And then Hollywood makes him look like something was wrong with him versus something wrong with the government, right? So this is what happened with Marion Barry. So for us in the streets, us who've been through all this, for us to see all this and see him get back up, see his resilience, see people like me who he didn't even always agree with, because see, one thing I tell people what's wrong with our community right now, we've fallen into this trap where we can't disagree. Right. Because what I understand is, what I was taught, that friction makes diamonds. Mm-hmm. Being around and having a bunch of yes men around us doesn't make a diamond. When we can start having conversations again and creating diamonds in our community again, we win. But when we these ass-kissing Negroes, no matter what party you in, you got to go along just to get along, we don't end up with nothing. We just get used time in and time out. Just like you get all these, I tell the young people, I said, come up to my house. Why are you in the street? There's nothing wrong with being in the street, but make sure you got a damn purpose, you got a mission, and you got an end result of why you in the damn street, or else somebody using you and they get the damn money. Make sure you understand you got a purpose. You got an outcome you seeking and a damn strategy. Because the other thing is, you can't have a damn moral, you got to have a moral compass. I'm not going in the street for a man getting killed if he ain't right. But if police killed a brother in the street and they wrong, like what happened to that brother last night, call the protest now for that brother back who was broken last night. They're wrong. But sometimes we wrong. And we got to understand that we do not have the backing of God when we do not operate with a moral compass. And we got to stop, we got to get this back into our people. Spirituality, moral compass, mission, strategy, execution.
So Ron, I read that editorial by Kobe King at the outset of this conversation, where he basically was saying we need to go beyond prayer.
Right.
We need to go far beyond prayer. Certainly, you have chronicled passionately that need. I really wanted to start this off with you as someone that I know that has been in the streets for a long time, that you've taken your share of criticism.
Right.
I very much thought that we here on the Rock Newman Show 2.0, as we embark on our journey to continue to try to put our footprint on this society and to make a positive impact, that someone who was so utterly familiar with the streets and who became familiar with the system would be ideal for what we're trying to accomplish. Brother, you've validated that feeling today, and I look forward to us sitting at the table in the future, in the not too distant future, again and again. Thank you so much for coming.
And I appreciate you, and I just want to know all the help that you've given me over the years without asking for any credit. You, Al Malik, everybody. It's people like Rock Newman, I'm telling y'all, that Reverend Willie Wilson, those people who supported people like me when nobody else would. And it's important that we give them their flowers while they're here, because we right here, where we building our own Black Wall Street, 102 businesses in Anacostia, 3 of them which we own right here, where we're going to do something special together, including with We Act Radio. So we are in a time where this don't happen in America no more. And we're making sure that it happens. We're going to make sure that Marionbury has his street right here. And to my point is, we can't let politicians play games with us. Your last question, where they say, well, no, I'm not going to sign a bill, Alyssa Silverman, to name the street after him. But then when they ask on the spot, oh, I support the bill. They can't keep playing with us. Like, sign on with all the other people who said we're going to make this his street, his boulevard. We can't keep letting people play games with us. That day is over, right? We got to stand on issues that matter to us, and we got to do it together. And I'm going to re-emphasize it before I leave. We cannot let them divide us brothers and sisters. We need each other. Like I said, we the only race that talks about, like, black men, black women. We together. Don't let them separate us. You never hear white man, white woman, white Jew, black Jew. Like, it's always us that we separate. And this ain't a attack on nobody. I'm just saying, why separate us? We got to be together. We need each other more now than ever before. So just be conscious about that, because we all have our fights. You know, I know the fight of the black woman, because for far too long they've been left behind. For far too long they've been fighting for us, and a lot of times people don't fight for them. But we just can't let them separate us where we think we don't need each other. And that is a tool that is used to tear us down as a people and stop our progression.
Thanks again, brother.
Thank
you
you
so much for
Appreciate
coming
you.
in. God bless.